Hey, welcome back to another Kingdom Hearts discussion in the Weebhut. Today, we wanted to make a video addressing something that's been a bit concerning to us for a while, involving the Master of Masters and whether or not people think he's a good guy or an antagonist. First, remember to like and subscribe if you want to see more interesting Kingdom Hearts content, because I love making it. So this video had to be made because we've seen an alarming number of people state that they unironically see him as a nice guy that only wants to ensure some people survive in the face of the looming Keyblade War. While yes, that is the message he gives to the Foretellers, but to take this at face value is, to be quite honest, a dumb thing to do, because you're the player that has a bird's eye view of the story and not a character in the story. I will say our opinion of the Master of Masters right now. He is a clear antagonist. He is cunning, manipulative, and cares nothing about anyone other than himself and his research. We feel that this conclusion was obvious after watching back cover and from playing Unchained. For those of you that disagree, let's see if we could perhaps shed light on why we feel this is the case. Our very first introduction to the Master of Masters in back cover is done through Chirithy narrating the events that led to his disappearance. It's established that he has a book that tells him the events of the future, and that after speaking with the other foretellers, he mysteriously vanishes. He talks with Ira and tells him about the upcoming war. Ira then comes to the conclusion that the reason they have the Keyblades is to protect the light, to which the Master says that no, they're not for protecting the light. He then quotes the page in the Book of Prophecies that says light will expire, but he never actually says the reason they have Keyblades then. Do Keyblades only exist to fulfill the prophecy of a war using them? He never answers this. Ira even asks him if there's anything that could be done to prevent it, but the Master shrugs this question off, stating how there's no avoiding the future, and that if Ira really thinks the future can be changed with the actions of just 7 people. Here we see the first example of the way he talks with each of the foretellers. He speaks in a way that encourages them to arrive at their own conclusions about what to do, without actually telling them whether they're right or wrong, even though it seems clear that he knows everyone's strengths and weaknesses. Thanks to the Master's response, Ira then comes to the conclusion that they should at least try, and the Master simply tells him good luck, obviously knowing that Ira will now be the one determined to act first out of fear. I'm sure that after seeing the scene, many people wondered whether the Master even cared about the Keyblade War happening. He's also the one that created the unions, and then provided each foreteller with a job to do after he said he would disappear. The only one to ever question this is Ava, after he's already been long gone. The players should also question this, as the purpose of the unions is also never answered. The Master even explicitly told Ira that the purpose of the Keyblades isn't to protect the light, so one even needs to wonder what the goal of the unions is if that's not the reason they exist. Ava also tells us that he stated alliances were strictly forbidden, without any reasoning provided other than the Master said so. It seems their existence would only cause tensions that would only ever end in a war event. In regard to the foretellers' roles, the way he allocated them seems perfectly designed to create distrust, not dispel it. For example, during his conversation with Aced, he starts off by telling Aced that his role is to just be Ira's right-hand man and support him. He knows that this would upset Aced, and then proceeds to basically flat-out say that if he thinks Ira sucks as a leader, to take over. My question to anyone watching this is how could anyone view this as something positive? He was so vague about Aced's role that he basically set Aced up as the traitor because nobody else would know that the Master gave him permission to turn on Ira. This is the most confusing role out of all of them, and the biggest one when it comes to evidence that the Master is clearly not acting in everyone's best interest. After assigning these roles to everyone, he conveniently disappears before everything starts to go down some months later, while telling Luxu to observe everyone from the sidelines first. His mysterious disappearance, along with Luxu's role to observe events, is such a clear indicator of an ulterior motive. He also creates the Dream Eater Chirithy and explains that they're like a pet that wielders could use to help them. He also explains that they're a convenient indicator of when a wielder gets consumed by darkness if their Chirithy turns into a nightmare. This is the method by which Ira comes to assume that one of them is a traitor, in addition to the missing page in the Book of Prophecies, which we learn Gula has and was told to keep secret, causing even more distrust. One has to question whether these Dream Eaters were even required, or whether they're just doing more harm than good. Again, if the Master can see the future, certainly he would know all of this in advance, yet chooses to go down this path regardless. The way he speaks to others is another indicator that he's not the benevolent master that the Foretellers believe him to be. He employs the technique of making others feel special and important to gain their trust. When Ava doubts that she would be able to create the dandelions to survive the war, he tells her that she's the only one that can do this task, makes her smile, and gives her new confidence. At face value, this is just seen as a master telling his student to believe in herself. But based on what we know about his personality, this is not the case. He constantly jokes around, takes everything lightly, and even in the face of a catastrophic event, just shrugs it off. Similar to a certain Marvel character, he's very chaotic neutral oriented, which means that it's hard to trust anything that these kinds of characters actually say. It is the mark of a sociopath to be someone that has no emotions towards anything, while still being able to say things that others want to hear. He's not helping the Foretellers, he's manipulating them to orchestrate the events that he wants to play out. Note, this becomes even more apparent around Quest 680 in Unchained. We learn that the Master gave Ava a list of 5 new Union leaders from her dandelions, and to only give one of them a copy of the Book of Prophecy. He also states that there's no reason for anyone to remember the Keyblade War, using the logic that it's just too bad of a memory for people to bear. This is a giant red flag because either he's someone that's never thought of the idea that those who forget history are doomed to repeat it, or he's purposely telling people to forget it ever happened so that the cycle can happen again. Another thing, Ava asks him if it's necessary to have unions in the first place, and the only reason he gives for keeping them is essentially, of course, I mean then your hard work would be all for nothing. This is not any kind of an explanation, and an example of him only providing information on that need-to-know basis. This is something that militaries also employ. It's a way to maintain power over those that you need to control. This type of thing can be necessary for self-defense missions, but can also be used to get people to do things that they would never agree to do if they knew the full picture, like that episode of Black Mirror. Finally, the Master of Masters for some reason finds it necessary to pass his Keyblade on to Luxu, for the sole purpose to pass his eye into the future so he can continue to have the Book of Prophecies be written. This is extremely suspect, and one wonders why there's even a need for someone to be able to see the future in the first place. There are literally only 2 reasons for this. 1, he feels as if he's some required savior, and that everyone relies on his guidance that only he can provide. Or 2, he has an ulterior motive that requires his future sight to continue long after he's supposedly gone. Neither of the above reasons are traits that a character that only means well would have. One option is purposely denying free will to those you supposedly care about, while the other is clear manipulation to fulfill a goal without caring about the potential loss of life it might cause. Literally everything the Master of Masters does appears to be unnecessary, and the result of his actions only causes worse and worse events to transpire. We do not understand how anyone could possibly see him as anything but an antagonist that Nomura wanted to portray similar to a cult leader. His followers all believe in him thanks to his ability to see the future, which, by the way, has not been verified at all. If he really could see the future, why would he bother going through this effort to cause events to happen that would most likely have happened anyway if he just did nothing? That nobody could actually verify, and they're just supposed to take his word on. He wins trust through kind words and a fatherly stance of, it's for your own good. They trust him so much that even when things take a turn for the worse, none of them ever possibly question if it's the master that could be the real traitor. So our prediction for the series is that the Master of Masters is going to end up being revealed as an antagonist that used his future sight ability from passing his Keyblade down to Lushu, so that it eventually ended up in Xehanort's hands to write the Book of Prophecies in the past that allows him to control events to his own ends. If this is the case, then the entire history of the Keyblade wielders is a sham, created by one man for the sole purpose of a means to some end. So is there anyone in the comment section that still thinks otherwise about his character? Why or why not? We'd like to know. So thanks for watching, and remember to leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoy these videos. Weebhut out.